thank you everybody for joining us on this session today. I will let my wonderful panel do their own introductions, but as you can see, we're a woman all. So all the experts in the room are women this time, so that is, in my opinion, to be celebrated. So welcome all, and thank you very much for your contributions today. This is a continuation of the session. This is a continuation, if you like, of the conversation that we just started in the main space, which is around developing an infrastructure for the technical alliance and trying to draw together many of the elements of the ecosystem that we want to in order to make sure that this is a sustainable proposal that we're putting forward. But without further ado, if I could maybe start with Jill at the end there, if you'd like to make an introduction, and then we'll get going with it. And if anybody has any questions at the end of this, we will take those as well. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Jill Broom and I lead the cybersecurity programme at Tech UK, which is the trade association for the tech industry in the UK. My job is mostly to kind of bring industry together with various stakeholders to encourage engagement, collaboration, both with their clients, but also for the broader good, such as we're here today. Hi, I'm Claire Spiller. I'm wearing two hats today. So by day, I work for AWS and I run a CSR program, a corporate social responsibility program, where we reskill unemployed and underemployed people into tech careers. And then by night, I run a nonprofit with my co-founder Laura, where we help in a very similar way to the Tech Army, where we bring volunteering together, really with the initiative to help new to tech volunteers go that last mile. They need experience on their CVs when they've finished boot camps. So we use volunteering on non-profit projects to give our new to tech volunteers experience.
So hi everyone, Sharon Moore. I am a technical director in IBM's ecosystem business. I flew in and I missed the really useful morning stuff, but I hear ecosystem is a word to keep using. So my day job is not what we're talking about here. I'm here unfortunately because our real experts in IBM in the UK are currently involved in something for a complete day, and all of them are there. So I do get involved in a lot of stuff, active in volunteering within IBM and outside as well. So hopefully a few things I can pass on.
Hi, I'm Aileen Hamilton and I work for an organisation called CERC. We're based in Dunfermline and we're a bit different from everybody else in the room, that we are an education charity and we primarily train teachers from the STEM subjects to be able to deliver practical activities in the curriculum, but I'm heavily involved in the STEM Ambassador programme. So we're looking at volunteers going out into schools and the community groups to encourage the next generation in careers in the STEM subjects.
Thanks very much, everybody, and welcome. I really appreciate it. You might actually quite worth starting there around why the STEM Ambassadors Programme sort of got going and why the badging that goes with it, the accreditation that you give to the volunteers is so important, and how they engage with you.
Yeah, sure. So the STEM Ambassador Programme is actually 23 years old. It's the longest serving programme in STEM in the country, and we are funded by the UK government. And it was really started by the UK government way back in 2001, who said we need role models. You know, there's a saying you've maybe heard, you can't be what you can't see. So that was the ethos behind the STEM Ambassador Programme, was get more role models into schools, either through individuals wanting to go and help their kids' school, or employers to give them the vehicle to actually develop their volunteering programme and to encourage the next generation. And we've gone through many, many iterations of the STEM Ambassador Programme. We now have a really robust system. We have a really robust database that STEM ambassadors sign up. They create a profile in their database, they get their disclosure, they get training, and that's where they find opportunities. So teachers will place requests and say, I want somebody to come in and run a code club, I want somebody to come and talk about careers in tech. And an ambassadors log all the activity that they've been doing, and they have an impact dashboard. So at any point in time, when they log into their profile, they can see how many hours they've volunteered, how many kids they've participated with, how many organisations. And then every quarter, STEM Learning present the ambassadors with a digital badge based on their level of volunteering. So if they've done 15, 35, 50 or 100 hours in the last 12 months, they get a various different colours of badges, with gold being the 100. And that's where you start to see it on people's LinkedIn profiles. So many times you'll see ambassadors saying, I'm proud to announce that I've got my gold badge for my 100 hours of volunteering. And then they go on to explain what they've done in that volunteering. And if you're on LinkedIn, you'll see that more and more and more. And then STEM Learning, they do a big awards ceremony every year. And we can vote for the best employer, the most inspirational STEM ambassador. And we take about 100 ambassadors to the House of Lords. And then there's a lot of presentations of certificates and prizes and a lot of social media and press around that. So there's quite a lot of inbuilt recognition into the STEM Ambassador Programme, because we recognise people are giving up their time to go out into schools and they need to get something back. And the last thing I want to say is, for people going for chartered engineering status or people going for their apprenticeship, they use their STEM Ambassador volunteering as part of that process. So for employers, it's very attractive for them that they now have a vehicle that they can show where they've been improved their skills, presentation skills, leadership skills, etc.
That's fantastic, Aileen. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot. I've now got more events to organise. Sharon, I wondered if you could tell us a bit about the IBM accreditation program that you have for IBM works, and how that kind of arcs across the world, and how that's used within the organisation.
Yeah, so there's probably a couple of angles to take. So the first one is in general. So IBM's made some statements about how many hours of volunteering it will commit to across the world by the end of 2025. I've written on my card, and then I put my card down. So I'm not going to tell you what the numbers are. You can find them for yourself if you really want to know. So the way that we capture that is through a platform we use, the Benevity platform. And so you can use that platform. It's called I think we've called it the IBM Community Engagement Platform, something like that. And you can volunteer as an existing IBM or as a retiree as well. We do actually have a really active retiree community as well. So you can volunteer to do almost anything, right? So it can be things that we're less likely to be involved here in the Scottish Tech Army. So it could be things like packing comfort bags for people who are about to undergo some pretty serious operations and stuff like that. But there is also that encouragement to really use the skills that you're having, that you're developing in your job, to go and help others. And there is a particular program, the Corporate Service Corps. I had to Google it earlier. I was like, is it really called that? But it's because it's meant to be like the Peace Corps, right? So the Corporate Service Corps. And that's where we will send groups of IBMers, often execs and our leaders as well, right? So they're setting a brilliant example to everyone around them, and to let them go and work on a particular project for a few weeks. And that really is about bringing your skills that you've got from IBM. Anyway, that's a long way of saying we have a platform where we can register that. You can find that stuff out, but you can register anything that you've done. So I do a lot with BCS, which is the Target Institute for IT. And so all my hours get logged in that platform. And for the hours that you work, basically, or you volunteer, up to £100 is that 100 hours is converted into dollars. So they will then donate up to $1,000 to a charity based on the work that you've done every single year, which is, I think, it's not a bad thing at all. So in itself, there is that way to just recognize that it's financial, right? It's not necessarily coming back to the individual in terms of their skills. So the second part of it is the digital badging that we do. So we use Credly, which was a claim, wasn't it? And a bit like STEM ambassadors, you get badges for the amount of volunteering you do for how many hours. So there it goes right from 40 hours is your first stepping stone, right up to platinum, which is something like 4,000 hours. And that's what you can accrue over time, right? So it's not all in one year. Goodness, 4,000 hours is quite a lot. But it adds up over time, and it's tracked, and you're awarded the badges. But there's other ways as well. So within IBM, we have professions, architect, specialist, all sorts of stuff that you'd recognize. And for part of those, there are ways to demonstrate your skills and the things that you can do through volunteering. So maybe teaching at a school or teaching at university. We've just run a whole module at the University of Strathclyde. That work can be captured as part of those badges. And then we can say, by the way, here we go. I happen to be thought leader architect. It's level 3, and the badge is there incredibly. Everyone can see it in the whole world. It also happens to be right now linked with the open group. So other badges then are awarded as a result of that. So very, very long way of saying, where we can, we take the volunteering skills and put it into other badges. And I reckon that actually things like the BCS, the different types of memberships and registrations, your volunteering skills would count for that as well, where you're actually demonstrating leadership.
So thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry. Claire, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your vision for the people that you're trying to bring into the tech sector and why you think something like this might actually help them as they start their careers as well.
Yeah, so there's the practical side, obviously the lack of experience, demonstrable experience, which is really important to them. But if you look at the future of work study that was done last year, it actually calls out the need for much stronger professional skills than ever before in the tech sector. So they've broken it down into a top 10 professional skills, and it starts with creative skills, analytical skills. It then goes on to talk about resilience and other things as well. So we've built a model where we can bring in new to tech volunteers, we can give them practical experience, but most importantly, we can align them with the professional skills of the future workforce. Important for us that we're future proofing their skills and that they understand the importance of their raw talent when they're going, not just for job interviews, but actually working for organisations as well. I think when you're new into a career, you actually underestimate the value you bring to an organisation. And what we really want to do is not just build their confidence, but build their storytelling of how great they are without it seeming too contrived, obviously. Um, so yeah, we're linking it to the future skills that's being called out, those professional skills.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that that confidence issue is so important. I mean, we have. I used to do the orientation sessions when the Scottish Tech Army first started. So we had hordes of volunteers all signing up to help during the crisis, and they would come onto these orientation calls almost till now, and they would disqualify themselves from volunteering on the basis they didn't have enough experience. And they're kind of going, well, you're here. It's okay. We know that. It's fine. Sort of step forward and give it a go. We won't let you loose on a charity for you to do damage. Nobody's going to die in this process. Be brave and sort of step forward. But I do think that's it's always the challenge. It's like Harry Potter and his wand skills. It's like you've got the skill there, but you don't really know how to control it. And even coming in and understanding how to work within a technical team. What is a scrum master? What do you mean by agile methodology and sprints and all this kind of stuff? Even just learning the language of it and things like that as well is so important.
And I think their life experiences as well. We all bring different backgrounds and experiences to a role. And tech, more than ever before, needs to be user led, service led. So the importance of bringing together people from different backgrounds that probably don't think tech is for them until they're told it is for them actually builds really awesome, creative, innovative teams that look and sound like the users that they're creating tech for. And that in its own right is really powerful. So I want to help them understand that as well.
Absolutely. Jill, I mean, from a trade body perspective, we know that skills and all that kind of stuff, is the biggest one of the biggest challenges that the sector actually faces. Do you think something like volunteer recognition is something that the businesses themselves would look at and would value? It's not just about social impacts, they're good things for stakeholders. It's more around would that look attractive to them as employers? Um,
Yes, I think so. And I think one of the key things if would be like, if it's a cross sector framework, then it's going to be far more impactful and valuable, isn't it, to everybody, all of the stakeholders that are involved in it. But I think part of that process will be ensuring that all the right players are engaged in the process of identifying and building the correct framework and building upon what's already there, what's already being used, and bringing that SME voice into it, like you said. How can we make sure that those kind of organizations can use it? And yeah, the skills gap is considerable. In the cyber space in particular, we have a real problem at the moment. We have a problem with diversity, but we also have a problem that there's a kind of gap between somebody has a qualification, exactly what we're saying, and then but they don't have the experience that all the roles are looking for. And for a volunteer role as well, that's actually quite an interesting point because I was thinking about you're being told that you can't do something because you don't have experience. So then that makes you nervous about volunteering. And then it comes back to that sort of safe space, as we've just spoken about in some of the other sessions, and being able to kind of gain some of that real experience and have that badged so that all of industry is able to recognize that
and not just one or two companies that follow it, then I think that's really valuable to those who are looking for that kind of, sort of, how can I prove that I'm competent in this area? And the other thing is the interesting thing about bringing the soft skills. So you've got your technical skills, but what did you learn? I was listening to another panel earlier on. They were talking about this allows you to be a bit more creative, and actually bringing that allows employers as well to kind of demonstrate what what might be a skill that they can take to a client and say, oh, we can do that, and I can prove it through this voluntary recognition framework as well, which I think is really valuable.
I'll just jump in there, and I have to say, because the STEM Ambassador programme is so long standing now, when people have "I'm an accredited STEM Ambassador" on their CV, then that's a major plus for them. And most employers now know what the STEM Ambassador programme is, and they know that that person has pushed themselves out to improve their leadership, their presentation skills, their problem solving skills. So certainly for a young graduate to say they've been a STEM Ambassador even at university, it gives them that edge. So I can see something similar with a framework like this,
Yeah.
that if you've got that in your CV, as employers get to recognise that,
Mhm.
it's a major tick in the box, for that person.
What you were saying as well about the chartered, aspect as well. So I'm thinking about the UK Cybersecurity Council is now a chartered organisation, and those are the kind of people that you'd need, or organisations you would also want to involve in this conversation too. So you've got all the tech industry, but then who are all the other players that would feed into this as well? Because you want them to be able to then recognise the badge of the voluntary recognition, kind of framework as well. So it's thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Well, the only thing I was thinking as we were talking as well, is, and I know not every organisation does, but lots of organisations work with the government. And I say the government as in that could be Scottish government, or we could be talking UK government, or we could be talking about local authorities. Whenever you tender, or whenever you go through the procurement process, there's so much emphasis these days on social value. So they might be stakeholders in the room thinking about these things, but even if they're not, they will be very happy recipients of a way that is more standardised, of how being able to understand um, the difference that volunteering is made, the contribution that volunteering is made, which is partly, I guess, one of the other conversations that are happening right now as well. So I can imagine there being an awful lot of interest on that side.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got some great case studies where one of our favourite videos is a chap called Thomas Gracie who works for BJSS, and he literally says on camera, I was completely unprepared for how invested I would become and how important this was to the charity I was helping. But he's a software engineer, and he doesn't his job is not client facing, but he took a leadership role in the volunteering project, and got to be that leader and got to be client facing and really liked it. And he took that back into his organization and is able to reflect to his bosses, that there's development that can be had there, that this is something that they enjoy, that they were good at, and that it can be further developed. And on top of that, they were saying, Lyra Kashi from BJSS was saying that they had been able to cite the examples of that volunteering and the skills that had been picked up and some of the new technologies that the people were being able to use, and put it into a bid and win contracts off the back of it, and have billable staff within their consultancy. So it contributes a lot to the businesses, but also, as I say, it helps those individuals to develop their skills. And the point about this system in particular is that it is portable, so it belongs to the volunteer. So if they move from one organisation to another, they still got it, and they don't lose it. And I think that's an important element of it as well. Sorry.
No, I was just going to build on that, on a thing we were chatting about yesterday, that I think there's real value to employers in engaging with an organisation like Scottish Tech Army that has or will have a volunteer recognition framework, because studies are showing that people want to work for organisations that have a sense of purpose, that have strong social value. Not all organisations can have that at the core of what they do on a day-to-day basis, but if an organisation that's hiring can show that there's volunteer opportunities at somewhere that has a volunteer recognition process, I think it would help them to attract better candidates, more candidates, probably a more diverse pool of candidates, which everybody is desperate to get at the moment as well. So I think there's a lot to be said for a common recognition process like you were talking about, that SMEs could then buy into, and which they wouldn't be able to do on their own. So a collective effort would be great for people that are trying to hire net new talent.
And I think being able to aggregate up the individual volunteers' contribution to the company level, so that they can cite it as evidence of social contribution and value, is a really important part, because you are crediting the organisation for their investment in their employees and allowing them to engage in their CSR programs. And as Catherine Badley from Cisco said last year, giving them permission, to actually engage in these programs, because they know that it brings value sort of back in as well. But I think also to roll it up at a higher level again and bring it up into the tech sector level, and stand up alongside the likes of IBMs and their programs as well that contribute, and actually use it as a bit of a lens into the third sector to say, this is all here. This willingness is here. This expertise is here. The art of the possible is over here. What levers need to be pulled to allow the third sector to engage more with that? Because it's still about time poor, resource drained organisations working flat out and beyond, trying to serve the needs of their beneficiaries. But being able to say to them, actually, these people can, it's like an army of people, I suppose you want to put it that way, that actually can help you. But I also think that one of the lovely things for me about volunteers that come with little or experience is how safe they are with the charities. They're very cautious, they're very careful, and the charity's kind of going, well, it's not just me who doesn't know everything, and it is the confidence of the charities to actually have a conversation about digital. I mean, within these walls, literally, Barclays has been working with the charity there, and the engineers that were working on that program with her had to completely change their language, because she said, I have no idea what you just said. My hive. But I have no idea what you just said. And they had to learn to engage with a client and talk their language and not their own. And I think it's such a valuable part of that kind of contribution. And actually, within the framework, we want to be able to recognise that picking up that new skill, it's not just about using what you've already got and that expertise, but if you were mentoring, you would be recognized as much as you were willing to learn. And I think that's part of what we have to do as well. I mean, I think the engine for this is going to be quite complicated, but I think it is worth it, because actually we do need to capture all of that information as well.
And we could, sorry, I was just saying we can probably learn from some of the tech skills frameworks that are out there. So if you think about the Sophia framework, it's such a great example of a framework that's got kind of moderated levels within, so you can see people moving through them then. And that's become, an industry standard across Europe and Australia. So there's potential there to do it. And there's some great frameworks that we could follow, but just with some new skills and experience in there that hit the volunteer sector more heavily.
The only thing I was going to say is as an extension, and I think this is a plan for much later, because there is if you think about the charities that are receiving the benefit of the volunteering, how it's one of the impacts that you measure, right? Or look at how they themselves are being upskilled or just becoming more digitally literate, and there's a potential opportunity for them also capturing their skills, right? And as well, and so it's maybe not recognizing the volunteers themselves, but that next stage of how do they start to say, well, actually, I am now more digitally literate. I was able to do this thing, or I've picked something up. So there's that aspect.
Yeah, I was reading one of Fujitsu's impact reports actually. So each year they bring all of their kind of volunteers together and support one charity on a very practical project. And one of the impact statements that I was reading from one of their projects said exactly that. Actually, one of their impact measurements was how confident their charity users felt and the service users felt with using digital devices and technology. And it was amazing, actually, that transformation. Because, if you give them the confidence once, they're more likely to carry on doing it as well. It's a real turnkey.
Yeah. I mean, one of the real joys within the Tech for Good Alliance and the Scottish Tech Army is when a charity comes back and asks for help again with something else, because you've got them started and they're kind of going, what else can digital do for me? And I really love that. And I think the only challenge the third sector faces with upskilling is, as soon as you do, the tech sector nicks them. And they can't compete with salaries. I mean, it's a real problem, and it's a real leaky bucket. And skilled volunteering is a really great way of someone's themselves, and trying to bring that skill back into the sector and keep it there as much as possible. And I think also just learning how the other half lives. It's so important now. We don't really see it if we don't live in those kind of environments. I think that's an incredibly important part of understanding our part that we have to play in civil society, because that is who we are.
we're all talking AI ethics right at the moment. Actually, it should just be ethics full stop. It doesn't. Absolutely, AI has been a really good driver and introduction. We do need to think about it in AI, but actually, we should be thinking about it in every tech project that we have. Um, One of the leaders in IBM for inclusion, Kitty, she says that she often asks herself, "Whose perspective am I missing?" So that is one of the other things we do, right? If we go in and we volunteer, we get a slightly better exposure to some other people with other challenges. We can bring that back and hopefully potentially represent them. We won't represent them anywhere near as well as if they were doing it themselves. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that suddenly we absorb everything, but that just it maybe will help us be better, be a bit more ethical, and think about people that are not included as well.
I think one of the other things that I want to kind of touch on a little bit is um, if you're not in the tech sector, you don't really understand the breadth of roles that there are available. And I think volunteer recognition is a way of saying, I am, a service design somebody, I am a data analyst, I am a software engineer. It's not just about the code, it's about all those other things that make the code make sense, if you like, and usable. And I think that being able to use volunteer recognition as a way of the analysis, a charity comes and asks for a solution, but it really isn't going to solve the problem because it's not their job to work out the solution. It's actually ours. It's the tech sector's, to say, well, actually, this would solve the problem. And I think that's such an important part of this as well.
It is incredibly important, not just for helping people understand now what jobs are available, but if we fast forward to 2030, there's a report that says 85% of jobs that exist in 2030 don't even exist today. So how on earth can people start to plan ahead and reskill ready for those jobs when they don't exist? So breaking it down into core component parts of behavioral skills as well as technical skills through recognition processes like this will help people be able to position themselves for jobs that we don't even know about today. So really, really important to break it down to skills based and professional skills based.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Skills Development Scotland, meta skills, that's what they talk about all the time, and saying we're not actually talking about the jobs anymore. We're just talking about the meta skills. And then whatever skills you gain can be adapted to industry, but they can't predict what the jobs are going to be. So it's the skills agenda, definitely.
I mean, when I volunteered, so the Scottish Tech Army started 4 years ago on Sunday, on the 28th of April. And I was sitting at home with nothing to do because I'd had to shelve my consultancy because pandemic. My husband had disappeared to our allotment for 11 weeks, which is shame. And my son, who lives abroad, was actually stuck on another continent in a very, very long way. And he was fine. He had a 4-month beach holiday. But he was too far away from me. I couldn't bring him home. And I was really struggling. I mean, I was really struggling. I had nobody to talk to, nothing to do. Nobody wanted what I had. And the Tech Army kind of popped up on my LinkedIn feed, but surely by chance, didn't know anybody in the organization. And I thought, I must be able to do something in there. I spent 5 years working for a tech business in a commercial role. I'm not a techie background. And actually, my volunteering experience was just amazing. All the things that I can do, talk, engage, point, encourage, inspire, all the kind of things that I have subsequently discovered is actually what I actually really good at. I was actually able to use all of them, and it made me feel like a valuable human being again. And I know that some of the conversations I had made a difference, but the thing that really worked for me, or was like a light bulb moment for me, was after 40 odd years or whatever it is in working. I have a huge network was completely unaware of, and my goodness, did I put it to work for the benefit of the Tech Army, and it still sort of reaps towards today. And I think for me, that's the other one is actually, did you use your network? Did you bring people in? Did you make introductions? I think the idea of generous networking is a really important one. It might not be anything in it for you, but if you can introduce somebody to somebody else, they won't forget who did that, and so eventually it comes back to you anyway. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions? We've got about maybe 10 minutes or so left. Yes, Lauren.
Hello. I guess like so. Oh yeah.
Good. Right. So,
Thanks. Hello. So one of the things in particular talking about, because I love the idea of being able to use something like this for people beginning their careers in STEM to be able to demonstrate how they can use their skills and add value to businesses. And for the past like 4-ish years, I've been a mentor in the STEM Aspire program, which is for women studying either higher or further education. And consistently over those 4 years, one of the biggest anxieties we get from those students is that they're not able, well, A, they're not able to demonstrate in many cases what they've learned, but also they don't have any confidence in what they've learned, that they genuinely feel like they have no value to offer because what they know is theoretical and they just don't really value that. And so I guess I can see why something like this would be amazing for them and I can encourage them to get involved. But I would worry that a bunch of them would be too scared to get involved because they wouldn't understand the value they could add. So I wonder if any of you have any ideas on how we can try and remove that fear or encourage them to take a punt on it when they feel that way.
I was just going to say that this is one of the biggest. We spoke about this before. That it's a very it's a problem, particularly amongst women, where there is no confidence or we don't seem to have the same confidence levels. And I am on the panel for the Empowering Women to Lead Cyber program, which is doing great work in terms of trying to build women up in the sort of leadership roles in cyber, giving those kind of skills. But it's actually about the network as well, which is a really important thing. And I think that the volunteer recognition framework and working with the charities, that angle of helping to build a network as well, just in itself, will also help to kind of build the confidence levels a bit, which I think is probably, quite key.
And I have to say, we have the same problem with STEM ambassadors. People who say, I've not been in a school since the day I left school. Kids terrify me. I don't know how to speak to kids. I don't know how to pitch my language. So what we do is we buddy them up. So we'll take an experienced ambassador who's maybe had 5 or 6 years experience of going into schools. And we say to the new ambassador, well, you go into that school with them and you watch what they do and you see how they interact with kids. And then after they've done that, they're like, oh, that's actually not as hard as I thought it would be. And then they maybe do that 2 or 3 times before they then go and do it themselves. And the biggest comment we get back from STEM ambassadors is, I now remember I did what I did, because being positive in front of these children reinforces the positive message of what subject I've chosen and what I've learned. And it's given me now confidence to go on with my own particular career. So that's kind of an aside that they don't expect to get. But the ambassador's coming back going, I actually love what I'm doing. And it's only when I'm talking to kids that I realise I love what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's sorry to touch on. I think what's really important for us as well is that when you're engaging with a charity, that we don't let you loose on the charity as an inexperienced volunteer just trying to wing it. It's about putting you in with a team of other people there that are experienced and being able to refer back to them and say, am I doing it the right thing? I mean, Magda, I'm sure that was your experience at Tech Army as well, that you weren't just hung out to dry with the charity trying to figure out what to do. Because that's really bad for the charity. If the charity ends up with something that doesn't work, that's rubbish or whatever, and that experience is bad, then they won't come back, again either. It's not about giving the sector a second-rate service. It's about bringing all of that enthusiasm and skill and desire to help and absolutely maximum out. What is Sharon?
So I'm a big fan of stories, and the more we can tell stories of people, particularly women, who that confidence thing, who've joined the project, and that's always a really valuable thing. I have a friend who's just been made a fellow of BCS, and she still says, "But I'm not technical," and I shout at her every single time. Because everyone's got to start somewhere. She's definitely not just starting. She's been around a while. She's got brilliant technical acumen. She just doesn't think because she doesn't code, right? But yeah, that message as well. But everyone's got to start somewhere. And how and we I don't know whether so we shouldn't just keep talking about imposter syndrome because I think it's doing damage. We're giving it too much airtime. But as long as I've done things in women in tech, which is the last 16 years, probably more than that actually, maybe good grief, at least 20. Confidence every single time. Oh, I'm not confident. I'm not confident. I'm like, "Oh, what is this?" So yeah, we've all got to start somewhere. And the guys, I'm being very binary at the moment, but the guys have got to start there too. Who says that they're confident? It's just we seem to express it more as women.
Yeah. Just to add one final point, I think the challenge to enticing people in the first place is meeting people where they are to start with and getting them when they're on the skills boot camp or they're just finishing university, for example, where they're showing an interest in tech, but they're still in a safe environment. So I think it's meeting them where they are at that point. And we spend a lot of time on the AWS Restart program, bringing in employers with their own challenges and getting the students solutionizing and building ideas whilst they're still on program. So that shift afterwards isn't such a big leap of faith. And then doing all these great things about building confidence in a safe environment and helping them see role models then comes into their own.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes, Gary. Hang on, using a microphone.
Yeah, it's an observation, really. I mean, we're not lacking any kind of skills, competence, kind of frameworks and things. I think they're out there. So if you do a Microsoft certification, IBM, all those sorts of things, and people just presume, you've done that, you're going to be able to deliver on the promise. I guess the big gap for me is if you're looking to build a team and you're recruiting, retaining, developing your people, you might be interested really in those meta, that experience thing. What's your experience of working with a team? Multidisciplinary stuff, and that's stuff that every business struggles with and probably would really really value. And on the other side, as a business, then if you were partnering with um, a Scottish Tech Army and you had that badge on your website and your recruitment, you're saying there's a value in volunteering. We want you. That's the sort of person we're looking for. So it's just a kind of that where would you start with this recognition framework? It's in that kind of meta area, isn't it?
There's a brilliant organisation. I don't know if you've come across them called With You With Me, and they have built an awesome framework that actually is to go to that kind of meta level. It does lots of profiling up front, but the really interesting thing, I'm just sort of thinking about your position of the question, is that they have kind of corporate industry clients that profile their workforce. And then if they're building a team, to your point, they can say, this is the team I want. They bring in the team from their internal people. And then if they've got gaps, they can go to With You With Me and then say, we need some net new additional people for this squad, and take them from the reskilled pool. And it's such a neat way of pulling skills-based teams together, but taking aptitude and personality profiling into account as well. It's a really cool model if you've not seen it.
Change.
It is completely about potential, right?
Yes, had a fascinating conversation with Ollie Benzacry, who's the chair of With You With Me, and he told me that somebody had said to him, if you're in the army, because it started dealing with vets like Doogie Richardson, he said if you've been trained as a sniper, you make a great cybersecurity expert because your brain works the same way, and it's about saying to people, you might not be able to add up all the numbers, but you can do these things, and actually this is the thing. And I think also the thing I would say is, and I've been doing this for 4 years, and Joe will tell you, talk about it ad audium, I do this more than I talk about ecosystems actually, is telling people to stop looking for a job in the tech sector and look for a tech job in any sector, because all the sectors are tech now. And actually, when you think about that, you suddenly realize, actually, I'm really interested in sustainability, but one of our strategic partners, GoCo Green, is providing certification of how green your code is. So why don't you get involved in that? It's a planet saving, opportunity, but you can still use your tech skills, or get using technology to do it. So I think that's an important part of the messaging through the volunteer recognition as well.
I have to say, again, with the STEM Ambassador Programme, we get requests in from teachers all the time. And we get things like, we're doing the topic of ancient Egypt. And they put a request on the system saying, can anybody help us talking about ancient Egypt? And then you get the civil engineers volunteering, talking about structures. And then you get the chemists volunteering, talking about carbon dating. And, it's quite amazing that whether it's the topic of transport or dinosaurs or archaeology, we've got ambassadors who say, well, actually, I'm a techie, but that is relation to this thing that you wouldn't necessarily have that connection with. And one of our best ambassadors actually has a degree in medieval history, but she runs a code club at night time. And she's got that creative heart on her, and she just loves programming. So the first thing she says to the kids is, I'm a medieval historian. Who knows what that is? And the kids that are anti-tech, who are like, oh, I don't do that, they get hooked in through a different way. Definitely.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up now, I think. Thank you. Unless anybody has any last comments that they would like to make on from the panel, anything you'd like to get across? No? Well, thank you very much to all 4 of you. That's been really, really insightful. Thank you. And I am inspired to keep going with the development of the volunteer recognition framework. And hopefully by the time we get to next year's Tech Movement Summit, we're going to be recognising our volunteers. So thank you all very much indeed.